You may recall that back in 2012, the Republicans, they were really stressed out, wringing their hands over the fact that they believed their 2012 loss, Mitt Romney's loss to Barack Obama seeking his second term, was partially because they were out of touch with all these demographics. They had fared so poorly with African American voters, other minorities, LGBT vote. They were just getting single digits from those constituencies. And they wrote this whole looking forward post-election analysis thing about how we gotta expand the base and we gotta reach out to these various groups. Now fast forward 8 years later, and based on what you hear on CNN and so forth, you would have the impression that support in those groups is lower than ever. Why? Because Donald Trump hates these people and hates that group, and he's a this and a that, and whatever labels you can affix on him to make him look like the most intolerant person who has ever lived. And yet, if he is reelected in November, and I think there's a pretty good chance of that, if he is, it could very well be because of the rising support that he has seen in some of those non-traditional Republican demographics. What do I mean by that? African American support. You wouldn't really know it from the way a lot of media talks about it. It has really surged for Donald Trump, hitting close to something like 30%, which is, well, it's not 50%, it's certainly not a majority, but it's a lot for Republicans under Mitt Romney. Yes, single digits. LGBT voters, depending on the polls, some of them put it up at 40% among gay men supporting Donald Trump. Previously, I saw that in 2016, it was something like 15% of the LGBT vote he got. Now it seems like it's closer to 25 all in all. So Donald Trump actually faring better the past 4 years with these demographics that he supposedly hates and has done horrible things for. How could this be? Well, my guess on all of this, and of course, media don't want to look into this too much because they're very uncomfortable by all of this. You know, they spent a summer saying Donald Trump is a this and a that and so forth, only to find the numbers actually go the opposite. More black voters gravitate towards Trump, and they don't want to report that, and they don't want to look into why. They'd rather just ignore it and pretend it's not happening. I think probably what's happening is people are being told some very severe things about Donald Trump, about how dreadful of a human being he is. Now, some of them just hear the headlines, and they go, okay, well, I guess he is, so I hate him too, and let's leave it at that. But some of them, being, naturally curious human beings, say, oh, okay, Donald Trump, hates me because I'm gay or what have you. Let's look into that a little bit. Let's find out exactly why it is that he hates me because I'm gay. And then they study the issue and they see people like Ambassador Rick Grinnell, who is in the Trump administration, a proud Trump supporter and a proud gay gentleman who talks about all the great things he believes Trump has done for the LGBT community. And they look at this and they go, oh, wow, okay, I guess all this crazy stuff they were telling me about Donald Trump is not actually true after all. And when these people go and actually inform themselves and try and fact check the narrative that's been presented about him, they find it's not entirely accurate. Look, maybe that's not going to sway everyone's vote, and there's still reasons if you want to say, well, I support Trump, I don't, I support Biden, I don't, go ahead, it's a democracy. But I just think a lot of the left and a lot of the media narrative, it just overshot itself. They were too ridiculous. If they'd maybe just said, yeah, we don't think Donald Trump's a good guy to vote for, he's not ideal, here's why, don't vote for him, here's my column on why I'm pro-Biden, people would go, oh, okay, whatever. And maybe that wouldn't have pushed people to Trump. But because they said such outrageous things about how dreadful he is, and because those things weren't actually as true as they torqued him to be, well, there you go. A lot of people said, oh, there's actually not as much for me to be afraid of as you first said. And the whole thing, the whole anti-Trump narrative, in little bits and bytes, starting to backfire.